Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 351. Today, I'm joined by Mike Pekovich and Phil Huber, and we get to hear all about their woodworking tour of England. Mike and Phil wandered over across the pond to Great Britain and did basically a woodworking vacation tour with 25 woodworkers, checking out museums and woodworking schools and all sorts of interesting things. It was honestly really great to hear about this from them and how much fun they had. And it was just an eye-opening experience for them and honestly for me to hear about their trip. So I think you're going to enjoy it. Of course, we talk a little bit about the upcoming Woodworking in America. And if you don't have tickets to Woodworking in America, there's still time. It's coming up next week in Des Moines, Iowa. And if you don't want to sit in on the classes and everything, there are vendor area tickets available. I think it's like $25 a day. You can check out all of the great vendors that are in the vendor area and their demonstrations and products. And, you know, we'll all be hanging out in there throughout the day as well. So stop by, say hey, and have a good time. All right, we'll see you in Des Moines. Now, on with the show.
That stupid crooked picture bothers me on like every Zoom meeting, but I don't notice it until I see it on the camera. So
I think this is how the episode starts in Ben Strano fashion. We get ready to start recording and Mike goes, hold on a second, like it was something very serious, and got up and straightened out a picture behind him. Okay. Are you feeling better now, Mike?
I'm feeling so much better. Yeah.
I totally thought he was adjusting the thermostat or something, or going to close the door, or
actually,
nope, none of those.
I thought there was an embarrassing picture, like on the picture, and he was moving it because it was like, oh, that's a little too out there.
Risque. Yeah.
Yep.
For a podcast on woodworking in my living room. Yeah. What would that be?
It was just a picture of a gappy joint on a drawer. No evidence. Gentlemen, has the jet lag wore off? Are we back?
No, not really.
Phil, are you so?
It was a lot easier for me to come back than it was to go out.
Oh, really?
I think. Maybe because I was super tired coming back from having just a full week of activities.
Okay.
Or just my body is at peace in the central time zone. But
So you flew out to did you fly into Heathrow to London?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you've got this. Where does everyone on this woodworking tour meet up? I'm picturing Phil running around Heathrow Airport looking for people in flannel.
That's fair.
Okay.
No, we had, there are several hotels that are loosely attached to one of the terminals at Heathrow. You walk down a long skywalk, and then branching off of that skywalk are 3 or 4 hotels, and they had everybody meeting at a specific hotel. So then we met for an opening dinner in the lobby of one of those hotels.
Okay. How many people were on the trip?
We had 24. And then was Mike and I, and then a tour manager, which I learned is different than a tour guide.
Okay.
But there you go.
And a bus driver who was freaking awesome.
Yeah. And the tour company has their own coach, as they call it. They're based out of the Netherlands. And then in the Netherlands, they drive on the right. So they brought the bus over on a ferry, and you drive on the left. So she's on the left side of the vehicle in the left lane. And her name was Alice, and she could weave that bus through what I thought was pretty congested London streets. Like, she was an artist with a coach on driving.
Yeah, and
it was amazing.
First 2 days we were in London, there was a subway strike. So there was millions of bikes in the middle of the road and disgruntled people all over the place and traffic jams everywhere. So that was like, yeah, so Ellis handled all of that amazingly well. And it just reinforced my hesitation to ever get in a car and drive in England at all. So,
okay, it was that bad?
yeah, it was horrible.
Okay, so you get in, you have dinner, and then chill for a minute, right? And then, like, what was the first stop?
The first stop was the next morning. We went to a place called the Building Crafts College, which is over on the east side of London, kind of near where the 2012 Olympics were.
Okay.
So, and this college is in an area that used to be owned by the carpentry guild.
Okay.
So like there's like a carpenter's arms pub just a couple of blocks away, and all the roads have joinery related names to it in that area.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a pretty cool place because they do, how did you describe it, Mike? It was like a real trade focused program that they were running there.
Very much, yeah. So what were the different disciplines? There was woodworking, I think, primarily focused towards like architectural millwork, restoration. One guy gave a quick demo of like kind of a traditional exterior door, which you think is, oh, rails and stiles, tenons and panels. It's like, no, this thing was subtly elegant in its joinery. It was like really smart and really amazing. And I wish we could have gotten like an hour-long demo on just like laying out door joinery. And the really cool thing is like stonemasons, like that's a really important thing in terms of new construction in stone and renovation and repair. So they have a whole thing on stonemasonry, just hitting blocks of granite with a hammer and a chisel. That was amazing. And, I think if that would have hit me at the right point in my life, I'd be a stonemason. Like, right on. This would be really cool. So that was neat. I wish we would have gotten a demo there. So this was kind of one of the two schools we saw. The other school was definitely more geared towards kind of high-end studio furniture-ish kind of stuff. And this was geared more towards the trades. And it was really nice to see that juxtaposition in terms of training and what the end result is. But no, they're like super serious. We're going to get people jobs. They're going to make decent money. So that was, really cool to see.
Was the school wasn't owned by the guild or the union or, right?
I don't think owned by it, but definitely supported by it.
Okay.
And then because the stone masons or stonework guild was also involved with the school for that part of the program, they would donate Portland stone for the students to work with on their projects. And they work with a bunch of other employers, I think, in the area too, that the employers can hire folk and then send them to the school for, it's like a 2-year program. So kind of like a tech college course here, but real immersive in doing stuff.
Was the furniture school tied to a program too, or was that more like what you would find here that's just like a nonprofit kind of deal?
That one, no, it's like tied into King Charles is like I don't get it. I'm, in terms of how everything is kind of hooked together. But no, the other woodworking school, Snowden School of Woodworking, run by Nick. What's Nick's last name?
Nick Wright.
Nick Wright, who was really awesome and gave a great tour of the school. So he's spent a lot of time in really high-end kind of studio furniture production shops. And I think a lot of the students coming through here are either have ambitions to go out on their own and set up their own shop, or to get placement into more higher-end fine furniture places. And it's kind of cool to see that there is a niche of the population that has an appreciation for that level of work and also the means to be able to afford it. And one thing like they were super conscientious of is the origin of the lumber that they were working with and how they're really trying to work with domestic woods. And that seemed to be like a really big part of their mission and what they're doing. And Nick was just assuming that the students already have background in CNC. They're already sort of getting, computer training and stuff. So when you come to the school, it isn't just like there is handwork involved in hand tools, but it's not just about, hey, let's get all old timey with old tools. It's like complementary skills to what other people are learning. Mainly it's like they do a shorter program where the focus is on cutting hand cut dovetails and doing marquetry, which seems to sort of be an odd combination, but it makes sense. And then the longer form programs, they go into furniture design and making original pieces, and very neat. I mean, I could see myself going to that school, but Nick was saying it's really pretty tough to get into. And I was talking to Nick on the phone before we went, and he said, no, we're really kind of aiming for people who are getting into the trade, basically, younger people establishing career, as opposed to the US. A lot of folks getting involved in woodworking, it's more of a pre-retirement, post-retirement kind of enjoyable thing. And he said, no, that's not really kind of the type of student they're looking for. They want to get someone up and running and making a living at it. So he didn't say I was too old, but I kind of got a sense that's what he implied.
So Phil, which one of them was the site of Mike's mind-blowing table saw usage?
That was at the Snowden School, because they had, the school is set up in like an old farmhouse and then a couple of farm buildings nearby. So one building is just a bench room where each of the students in the program has a space, wall rack of hand tools. They do kind of their design work there and some of the tutorial things. And then they had a separate building what was just a machine room, and kind of had your basic complement of all the machines: joiner, planer, a big table saw, shaper, drill press, bandsaw, miter saw. We're going along and we were standing there. Nick was kind of talking about it, and there were a couple of students he was talking about, because they try to get these students who usually don't have any power tool experience, like using tools right away, just to start to build that comfort and those safe practices. Then Mike asked a question about joinery or jigs or something like that. And Nick kind of looked at us like we had two heads a little bit. He's like, no, this is just a table saw for ripping. Like we just...
Yeah, they have a table saw set up, and I think someone said, why don't you have a saw stop, and they said, no. And it was kind of like the conversation got around to the fact that, no, their table saw, it's a single-use tool. Like it is literally there to rip boards to width. That's all. Like they don't do any cross cuts, and there was no cross cut sleds to speak of. And, in my brain, it's like I wrote a book on what I thought was just standard fundamental woodworking techniques, and 80% of everything I'm showing is done on the table saw. And it's like zero of that was being done there, but they were turning out super high quality work. It's like, wow, this is a whole parallel universe. So I had just said, Nick is like, well, how do you cut a tenon? Like it's like, I need my table saw for a tenon. So they make a lot of use. They have a Festool miter saw, sliding compound miter saw, which is set up super accurately. And it sounds like they do a lot of their cross cuts, a lot of their like tenon shoulders and that kind of stuff on that sort of thing. And then maybe go to the bandsaw to cut the tenon cheeks, which is cool. So it's just, it kind of goes to show how the way you look at a single machine in the shop dictates how you're looking at everything else in the shop. So I would say that while a lot of us, myself included, I see my chop saw as just a rough cross-cutting thing, and it's within a degree or two of square, but I'm not counting on square joinery out of it. Whereas if that's how you are set up to do joinery, you're going to make sure that is dead on. And so, yeah, very, very eye-opening. I'm not giving up my table saw, but I have an appreciation for doing without one. So now every time I'm in the shop, well, how would I do this now? And I would think like 5 minutes, like, nah, never mind. I'm just, I don't know. I wouldn't do it.
All right. So, okay. But Phil, you are not a table saw centric person. So
I'm not.
Did you feel at home?
Yes and no, because I know what it's like to not have a table saw to do tenons with. And that's even just kind of my personal preference, even when I have a table saw available to me. But it was also just like Mike alluded to, you make a choice either in tooling or design. And it was just interesting to see how that one choice starts to spread out into a web of other choices that either are made for you or you need to make in order to accomplish something. Because like, for example, when Mike was talking about they use the sliding miter saw to do the tenon shoulders, and they take the time to set the depth stop on the chop saw. And it's like every chop saw in the world has a depth stop on it. And I think there's probably 4 people listening to this podcast that either A, know that it's there, or B, have ever tried to use it.
Yeah.
And to them it was like, yeah, that's just what you do. Like, why wouldn't you do that?
Okay.
And then Mike was saying too, is, when you look at tooling choices, so maybe the traditional mortise and tenon in a power tool setting like that just isn't necessarily this super pillar fundamental joint, in the sense that maybe you're doing loose tenon joinery because you have a dedicated machine that does that, Festool Domino or whatever. Because Nick was saying and talking about it, like that's how we would do it here because we're kind of constrained on space. These students are going to go out to a shop, and when they're there, that shop is going to have a tenoner.
That's what he said. How do you cut tenons? Well, on a tenoner.
Tenoner.
Like,
yeah.
Oh.
And a tenoner is like a full size piece of equipment that
right
cuts the shoulders and the cheeks, and with probably 2 huge blades, right?
2 huge blades, probably a sliding table or something.
Yeah, there's a sliding table
down. Yes.
They had an old Watkins one at the Building Crafts College. I took a photo of. I can send it to you, Ben. But yeah, it's just, they had like a monster mortising machine, which is familiar to a lot of us. But this tenoner, was basically a sliding table and looked like 2 shaper cutters on top of each other that just buzzed both cheeks at the same time as you just passed the piece across.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Okay, so you went to the school, or both of them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What else was a part of this trip?
We did a tour of the National Arboretum called the Weston Burt Arboretum, which on the face of it might seem a little bit odd, but I think it's really, especially after being at the Snowden School where they were talking about, woodworkers being at the tail end of a 105-year process of, you have like 100 years of this tree growing, 4 years of this tree getting cut and then air dried. And then you're at the end of this, you're at the tail end of this long chain of responsibility for making something out of this tree. And, for me, it was just really cool to be familiar with our lumber on the hoof, so to speak, rather than just as boards. And that there's a kind of a cultural history surrounding how specific materials were used, how they were grown, why they were grown this way, all that kind of stuff. That was in there.
Were they, well, first off, so what are the domestic hardwoods that you would find?
They were dealing primarily in oak,
Okay.
beech. Sycamore was a pretty heavily used one there.
I think there's elm.
Elm, yeah.
Ash as well.
Ash.
And I was going to say, then we visited, we didn't actually get to see it. It turned into a really cool accidental demos. We went to see a boxwood plantation, which was really neat. We didn't get to see the trees themselves, but across the way, there was this church built in the 1200s, and a guy was there who was a professional oboe recorder player, playing traditional instruments, and he also makes his own instruments, and he uses boxwood. So it was really cool to get kind of a really cool deep dive into a single wood species by a guy who uses the wood specifically for the sound qualities of the instrumentation. So it was all about working properties, sound, tonal qualities, and he whipped out a couple of his oboes and played some tunes on it as well. So sitting in this church made in the 1200s with furniture, which couldn't have been a whole lot newer, a lot of like kind of Gothic pierced carving, heavy benches and altars and that kind of stuff, was just very cool. So I think the Arboretum kind of spoke to, an appreciation for native timbers and just a sense of place, a sense of culture, a connection between the wood, the materials, the woodworking, the style, the manner of things being built, and how it relates to this very mature culture as well. So, which was super inspiring. I think we think of that in a lot of those terms here. Being in Connecticut, looking at the wood that's grown in my backyard made me more focused on working with local woods, whereas in California, because everything came from somewhere else, it didn't matter if you were working with Paduke or mahogany or oak, it was all from somewhere else. It was just, what color did you want to make your thing out of? So it just kind of took that kind of connection to place and culture and history up to the next level. It's like, oh, I'm just dipping my toe into this. You people have this figured out. So yeah, well, hugely inspiring.
That reminds me of driving down the road with Logan from Popular Woodworking, and he'll be talking about, oh, there's some great like pin oaks back there or whatever. There's some great, and using phrases that we don't use because by the time it comes to the board state, you can't prove it was a pin oak or a whatever. It's like you have to have the flower or the whatever. You have to have more information on the tree for all of those things. And I mean, I would assume, Phil, you're getting some lumber every now and then from Logan, and he remembers cutting the tree down.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So having that connection between where the tree grew, what was the circumstances as to why it needed to come down, all that can sound kind of frou-frou from the outside, but after hearing that oboist Joel talk about his very deep enthusiasm for boxwood, it's like, what would it take for a woodworker to just be super passionate about the material and wanting to figure out like what are the best ways to explore it as a material that shows off all of its capabilities in one way or another. And it doesn't have to be boxwood. Certainly boxwood was amazing after that. I don't think there was anybody in our tour group that by the time of Joel's presentation got over was like, I kind of want to make something out of boxwood right now. I don't know why.
Have either of you worked boxwood?
No,
I have not.
While back, kind of a friend, colleague, gave me a stack of shrink wrapped 1/2 inch thick, maybe 4 by 12 or 14-inch pieces of boxwood. There's like 20 pieces, and I never got around to doing anything with it. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I had really no idea about what it was and what its value was. And it's super heavy, super dense. It's almost, what do you say? It's almost as dense as like ebony, but
yeah,
it
as dense or a little bit more than ebony. Yeah.
Yeah, it really takes a super hard shine. It's very heavy. It's got that sort of clink to it when you bang it together. Like there's just a really awesome aspect to it. So I went home and I looked at my boxwood, and then I went online to see how much it was worth. And it's like, oh, okay. And I think,
and then I sold it.
And then I'm hoarding it.
So, all right. So he made, Phil, you were sharing some videos earlier. This gentleman made a curved oboe.
Yes, it was. First of all, I didn't realize that the oboe family was larger than an oboe. Okay. But he had like a Baroque style oboe, and then he had one that had a much more ball-shaped bell on the end of it, which was, I guess, an even older style.
I would think of that as an English oboe, but there they probably call it something else.
They just call it oboe.
Oboe, yeah. And then the curved one he had was called an oboe of the hunt. And it was this big C-shaped instrument. And he was asking us, I feel like he was setting us up, because he's like, how would you make a curved oboe? And everybody's like, steam bending, that's how you do it. And he's like, yeah, that can kind of help. Boxwood doesn't really steam bend that well. Instead, it's kerf bent. So you turn the oboe and drill some of the holes, and then you kerf it, just like kerf bending. And then I think that's where you could use a little steam to bend it to its shape. But now you have all these holes in it from the curves. So then he has to wrap it in leather that seals up all the holes. And then a brass bell gets, like a small, almost like a trumpet-sized bell gets put on the end of it. And then the rest of the keys, and there you go.
So is the whole thing, like when you look at it, look like leather? Like a basket handle?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah, it had the leather he had was a real dark brown, probably dyed or something like that. But it didn't look like, it wasn't like, it was really fine wrapped. It wasn't tightly wrapped. It didn't look like it was like buckskin or something like that was put on. But it had a really cool shape to it. It had an amazing sound.
Cool.
But yeah.
Well,
because he had several oboes. He's a professional recorder player, which who knew that was a legit instrument? But it is. And then a couple of boxwood flutes that he had as well.
Oh, really? So he's really just making the most out of every piece of boxwood he could possibly. So tonally, I guess it makes sense. It's like ebony, which is a instrument wood many times. So this is,
Yeah.
We need to snag some boxwood.
Yeah. That was really fun.
I'll give you a piece.
All right. I'll take that. When you're working on a project in the shop, putting in hours of effort, measuring, cutting, sanding, the last thing you want is for your project to come apart because the glue didn't hold. Trust me, I've had it happen. That's why you should keep a bottle of Gorilla Wood Glue on the bench. It's non-foaming, cleans up with water, and dries a natural color. And of course, there's the reliable Gorilla strength you can always trust. The bond is actually stronger than the wood itself. Also, look for Gorilla Wood Filler for strong, durable repairs with high-performance stainability, paintability, and sandability. you're left with a professional-looking finished project every time. Gorilla is strong enough for the pro and easy enough for the beginner. Regardless of the user or the job, every bond is built by you, backed by Gorilla. Okay, so you went to a museum, right?
Yeah, there were several museums that we went to.
Okay.
The first half of the trip was in London. Second half of the trip, we were staying in the Cotswolds region. While we were in London, is the Victoria and Albert Museum.
Okay.
And I had heard about it, but I'm not sure what I was expecting other than museum. But they had the one floor, one big long hall was entirely devoted to furniture. I guess the origin story of this museum was that it was set up as a way to have like this clearinghouse of design ideas to promote the education of British designers and builders, to give them, bring in all this stuff so that people could be exposed to all that the world had to offer, so to speak, and just turn it into a fountainhead of ideas, like a scrapbook, so to speak. And so they had a whole section on furniture, which Mike pointed out just how well curated it was as an exhibit.
Yeah, it wasn't based on chronology or necessarily even furniture type. A lot of it had to do with techniques, where if it were something carved, they would have a piece from the 1400s that was carved and then a contemporary piece that was carved. So you're kind of seeing a juxtaposition of old versus new, traditional versus modern takes. But so it's on a theme. So whether it was marquetry or, I don't know, I'm going to make stuff up, turning, inlay, carving, it was these different explorations. It's done really, really well. A lot of interaction, little touch screens at every exhibit, so you can click on a piece of furniture that you're looking at and it tells you all about it, and interactive stuff in terms of wood and what the wood was made for traditionally. So I thought it was like a really nice entryway into furniture appreciation in a much different way than I've seen before. The main feeling you have coming out of it is just utter depression at how just the high level of craftsmanship, where some of these pieces where the entire thing was inlaid with small pieces of mother of pearl, the entire thing, it looked like Elvis's belt buckle times a high boy. And you just realize it's like, wow, this is like someone's entire career was focused on this one aspect of craftsmanship in order to get to this level. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So it was, is very inspiring, but at the same time was just so far beyond, I think, what any normal modern person with a day job is capable of doing. But it was still cool. And they had like an arts and crafts room, which was super. What I really loved is that the type of arts and crafts furniture I like is that where it's kind of inspired by kind of Gothic furniture, 1400s. And they had like 1400s architecture and carving and furniture along with like arts and crafts furniture. So you're kind of going back and forth. And that was really exciting. It was kind of like just getting a much deeper appreciation for where these design forms are coming from. And yeah, that was really cool. And that kind of tied into later when we visited the Rodmartin Manor, which was designed by one of the Barnsleys. There's a dad and two sons, plus another son of one of those sons. But so Barnsley is sort of known collectively as sort of an English arts and crafts maker, architect, shop. And so this mansion was designed by Barnsley, and all the furniture inside was design made by the Barnsley shop. Ernest Gibson, who's another contemporary who worked with Barnsley, was a part of that as well. And it was, I guess, the equivalent of going to the Gamble House in Pasadena, where it's this home, the architecture and everything inside was all designed of a piece. And I think so I got to see a lot of pieces I'd only seen in books there. Super frustrated because they wouldn't let you take pictures of anything. And I'm still a little bit upset about it, but that's okay. But it was really cool. So everything from the details on the furniture to the details on a handrail, of a stair rail to the front edges of these steps going up. You see these details which are repeated throughout the house, and the idea how you can have kind of a central design theme yet still work really creatively within that construct to create a nice variety of pieces of furniture which all kind of hang together, not just in and of themselves, but you get a sense that this furniture was being made over decades. So there's definitely newer, more cleaner, modern-ish furniture, but when you start to look at the details, there was still a very strong connection even between the stuff that looked like it may have come out of an old castle to something that may look like it came out of more of a mid-century apartment or something. But yeah, that was tremendously inspiring because it kind of dealt with themes that I think a lot of us try to wrestle with in making our own furniture. Like, how do we make stuff that ties together? How can we still be creative working within a quote unquote style? How do you make something new without having it be completely divorced from everything else you're doing, as opposed to a logical evolution of your work? So things I struggle with a lot. It was just nice to kind of see that working out in real life. So
yeah,
inside of a giant stone manor, which had been added on to over decades, amidst the English countryside with the rock walls and the rolling hills and everything you can imagine when you think of, the Cotswolds. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I have pictured in my head the Cotswolds from English period dramas on the BBC,
Mm-hmm.
and then thinking that it's probably been turned into some kitschy name your local tourist kind of, Door County, Cape Cod, all that kind of stuff. Someplace that used to be cool, but now it's just touristy. And it's not. It's still sheep and hedgerows and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure those elements exist somewhere, but there's still plenty of places driving along where it's like, yep, I totally expect Father Brown to solve some sort of a murder here.
Oh, Father Brown.
Yeah. So going back to what Mike said, it was kind of interesting for me was two little lessons. One is, as he was talking about all these different pieces that held together, even though they had similar elements, and how there's like a fuzzy line, at least in my own woodworking development, where you say like, I'm going to design something or I'm going to build something in the green and green style. Okay. And you have this box, and then you get the like green and green stickers, and you just put the little elements on, and you just kind of put them on all over the place. And look, green and green, you know, cloud lifts. And,
do a cloud lift and some pegs, and we're there. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, these elements that are like the grammar, and then you got to put it together into something that really fits. And then the other thing we were talking about is, there's a way to go to a place like that and see things in real life and then think, man, I really want to build something that's in the Barnsley style. It's like, no, maybe that's not the right lesson. It could be, but maybe the right lesson is like, look at what the Barnsleys did using this design elements, and they're trying to take this really bulky piece because it needs to fill this space, but they don't want these pieces, the individual furniture components, to look super heavy. So how do we have the mass where we need it, but then we make it look lighter? Are we adding a chamfer here or like a double set of chamfers so it looks like the piece is twisted and lightens up? does it step back or tapers or, so then applying those lessons to like a piece that I would make then is, I want to make myself a desk. So I want it to be stout enough to be a desk and not feel frail, but I also don't want it to look like a timber framed barn, and it's, thinking about all of those elements as the way to apply the lessons that you see for something like that.
Yeah. I would think that, Mike, you would be just, I guess if you couldn't take pictures, but you've mentioned pierced carving multiple times, and I know that that's like one of your sidebar obsessions.
Yeah,
maybe
definitely. Yeah.
Was this trip? Did it fill the bag?
Yeah, very much. Absolutely. Again, like being in this church from the 1200s, seeing these pierced carved, wooden structures, part of the architecture. Yeah, I mean, just to see the real stuff was really cool. And something Phil alluded to is I'm a big fan of the chamfer. I like to think I've gotten a lot of mileage out of the chamfer in my work. But yeah, like in the Rod Martin Manor, they are the masters of the chamfer and making it work, and how heavy of it, what's its visual effect, how is it terminating into other parts. And that was, yeah, it's like I thought I was up to pierce carving. No, I'm still on chamfer. It's like I'm still get this right. It's sort of like the level of detail and the mindfulness. That was a really inspiring thing. Is I really focus on form and proportion, which is hard enough, and like that's plenty to focus on. But then to get that right, and then like move on to the details within a piece, and how they all relate to each other, I feel like that to me was super exciting to see. Like, oh, there's a whole path forward in the work I'm doing to now start to focus down to a little bit more of a granular level, and super exciting to see. So, and I think that the same kind of carried through. We went to another town, Broadway, which is another Cotswolds village. And there's a Gordon Russell Museum there, where a lot of Gordon Russell was a designer, ran a shop, and kind of started a contemporary a little bit later than the Barnsleys, but still super heavy English arts and crafts to begin with, and then moving on to more of a modern look through the 20th century. But it was still really inspiring, really neat stuff to look at. And the person at the front counter in the museum, we asked if we could take pictures. She said, "Of course, I have one favor to ask you. Please feel free to open the doors and drawers and touch everything." And it was just like, wow.
Oh, lady, you have no idea the wrath you have just brought.
Yeah.
29 woodworkers wandering around inspecting drawers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there were pieces where, I mean, it was a nice collection. It wasn't an overly huge space. We thought, oh, we'll get through this pretty quick. But no, pulling out drawers, looking at details. It's like I could literally spend hours looking at individual pieces and the details. Yeah, truly amazing. Again, getting down to that level of detail. And one thing I'm super inspired by, not just from a design standpoint, but I love kind of the English method of drawer construction. It's like everything was like super thought out, like how to keep just like the bottom edge of a drawer front. How do you keep that from scraping on the opening? You just relieve it. Okay, I kind of do that. And like, how can you keep the back the top of the back edge from scraping when it tilts down? You can recess it. That's cool. But all those things were taken into account in really, really elegant ways. And the biggest difference is that it's really common to use what's called a drawer slip. Instead of cutting a groove into a drawer side, you're adding a piece of wood to the inside bottom edge of the drawer that has a groove cut into it. And what that means is that your drawer sides can be really, really thin. and you're not compromising the strength by having to cut a groove into it. You're actually adding a little stick of wood with a groove to the inside edge of that. And it's just a really very, very elegant way to make a drawer. It's just like, oh, this is how I'm making drawers now.
Wait, so explain it again. I missed it.
So it's like you get, go ahead, Phil, you do a better job than I can. You're a word guy.
I can't get through to this one. Maybe Phil can.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have the drawer sides were probably 1/4 inch, 5/16 thick material.
Okay.
You know, if you were to groove that for a drawer bottom, either there's just not much for a groove or you're slicing almost all the way through the side. So instead there's let's call it like a 1/2 inch thick piece on edge that has a groove in it that holds the drawer.
Okay.
And that gets put probably into a rabbet or glued to the side. Yeah, like Mike's got there.
Oh, so this is for the actual, not for the drawer carcass. This is the actual construction of the drawer.
Of the drawer to hold the drawer bottom.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So then you have these, because these pieces of furniture, half blind dovetails on the front, very tightly, elegantly done, and then to have this be like super chunky drawer sides just wouldn't have matched. And being able to narrow those up a little bit, you have this, what feels like a very sweet, well-designed drawer coming out of there. And I think a lot of it had to do is that we were just part of a larger group of woodworkers. So it could provide cover a little bit, that you could totally nerd out on a piece and not feel like a weirdo. And then the other thing is when you're with other woodworkers, is they're seeing stuff that you're not looking for altogether. Because there were some pieces that I had looked at, thought were super cool, kind of fixated on. And then all of a sudden somebody goes, oh man, did you see how they did and then so everybody swarms around it, and then people are starting to poke, and pick out other stuff that they've seen, and, it maybe would have escaped your eye or wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But once it's pointed out and then put into a context and then wrapped up in a big piece, it's all of a sudden made whole in a different way.
Yeah, that sounds like a true experience, like being able to inspect with other wood. Well, and I've had like hints of it at like going to the Yale furniture study with Bob Van Dyke and, other people, and just like walking around and like pointing, but that place is overwhelming in its, hundreds of pieces, so having a nicely curated selection to really inspect with other woodworkers. Oh man, that sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
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 And, we've, like Mike said, we've seen a lot of these pieces in books before and photographs, but there are also several very key details of these pieces that have never been explained that I've seen in photographs before or brought out, that it was like, oh, I didn't even know they did that on this piece. That makes this even cooler.
Mm.
Yeah, or just see the same detail on 3 or 4 different pieces. Like it didn't just exist in a background, in a vacuum. Oh, I just thought of this for this one thing. It's like, no, you saw they have like a whole toolkit of design elements you can throw at different pieces for kind of a similar effect. Yeah, and there's one piece, I call it like the Goldilocks piece, because there was more kind of primitive looking work, and then there was more modern, more detailed inlaid work, and then like right in between this transition there was this one piece where it was like just right in the wheelhouse of just being basic solid wood furniture, but then with a level of thought and detail and proportion that was like just right. And I could just like sit and stare at this one piece. I think you could do like a semester-long furniture class on just examining the details and proportions of this one piece of furniture. So.
I'm in. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were there any other stops to talk about? Was it? Or was it just? It sounds like a blast just going through museums with other woodworkers, and like
Right.
that would be it for me, I think. But
Yeah,
what
that
else?
was cool. There was a couple of days where they had scheduled some free time where you could kind of wander around one day in London and then one day in one of the Cotswolds towns.
Nice.
One of the other ones that was a surprise to me is because I'm not a turner, but I can appreciate those who turn. And we were meeting up with a guy named Paul Hannaby, and I was under the impression that we were going to be going to his shop to have him do a turning demo for us, which I would have thought, yeah, awesome, cool. And he had us parking at some pub, social club, and I thought it was just because that's a place where we could park the bus and then get to his shop. Turns out this is probably the best way to do a turning demo, in my opinion. So for all you turners out there who want to do a demo, is he rented out the social hall of this pub for the demo and set up his lathe and chairs. So everybody in the tour goes into the other room and grabs a pint or a cup of coffee, comes back, and Paul had set up like, hey, I'm going to be making this goblet in the next 2 hours. It's got a twisted stem. We'll talk about all this stuff, ask questions as you need to, push play, and he just launched into it, and it was fantastic.
That's awesome. Very cool. Very, very cool. Well, real quick, I think that we should probably talk about the good time that we're going to have without Mike around in Iowa, because I'm heading out there in a couple weeks.
Right. Yeah, we have Woodworking in America coming up very shortly. It'll be a super fun time.
We're
really
in the middle of all of the logistics and everything. This is the part where once we get past this, once we figure out how we're getting TVs in every room, I think I'll be a lot happier.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. All the meetings pay off.
Yeah. Yeah. But so Phil, you're doing a presentation on frame and panel doors, right?
Yeah, custom cabinet doors. This is a technique that's been evolving in my head for quite some time, just based on my own shop and work habits and experience on how you can create almost any kind of cabinet door and then customize it without having to invest in a lot of specialty, this, that, or the other thing. So
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And you're doing a couple.
I'm doing a presentation on parametric modeling with Fusion 360.
Wow.
And just kind of that whole, like, just show people, because I think, well, Mike, you're like this. You are hesitant to learn CAD because it is a process. It is a commitment, right?
And yes.
Well, like you just like getting to work. You want to draw the piece, do the model, full size model, and then build the piece. And my goal with it is to just really show people like how powerful parametric modeling is, where it's like all of the things that people have associated with CAD programs like SketchUp or other things, where it's like, okay, I just spent all of this time and now I want to change something, and it's all broken and I'm married to this model now. Whereas with parametric modeling, it's really like the change literally takes 4 seconds, and you can see it on the screen. So
is it a thing where you make a tweak to one table leg and then all the legs do the same thing?
Well, but even it's a thing where you can literally say, I modeled this table at 32 inches tall, but I just found out they'd rather have a coffee table. So I'm going to change the height of the table to 18 inches. And everything in the model changes. And if you do it correctly, your joinery and your aprons will update appropriately within the spectrum you give it. And even curves will update based on the new. It's kind of a mind bend, but that's why I really, at first I was going to do Lutherie for woodworkers, but as I was digging into it, I realized I was just like, there's not that many people who really want to wander down this road. So I thought that it would be better to show people Fusion and get that kind of thing going. But
very cool.
There's, Alexis Delise is going to be there. She lit the place on fire last time. So I'm psyched for whatever she has to present. And Shay Alexander and Vic is going to be there. We'll be doing a podcast. I'm sure Vic will be on that. I talked to him a little bit this morning about it. So it's going to be a blast. Logan will be there with a sawmill, of course.
Amanda, she's going to be there.
Amanda's doing a presentation on like small run productions, which is kind of cool.
Awesome.
Of like the mindset to get into if you're going to make, 10 of something,
Right.
So that's a totally different kind of bag, So I think it's going to be it's a blast. It's always fun to hang out with a bunch of woodworkers,
It is. Yeah. As we found out on the tour, it's going to be really cool. And in addition to the presentations and the vendor spaces, there's going to be plenty of time to just hang out and chat with other folk and show them your projects on your phone and exchange some ideas.
Get to tour the Woodsmith Shop studios where Phil is right now. And that was actually really a great way to start off last year because everybody just hanging out as opposed to like being in a, sitting there and like, in a stuffy environment or something like that. It started it off with a very familiar tone. So, yeah.
Come on by.
Yeah. Woodworkinginamerica.com.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you both.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see if we do another trip. I don't know if they were talking about another one or not. And, but I know Mike's trying to get a trip of Japanese woodworking environs going. We'll see.
Who, me? What?
That's weird. Didn't see that coming at all.
I think we're going to be meeting and see what we want to do moving forward. I think it was definitely a success. And, it's one of those things where it'd be cool to do a different place, but at the same time, I think going through the tour in England once, and you kind of know what to expect, and we can kind of tweak the experience a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that would be great. But then there's some other locales that had come up as well. So, we'll see. I think, the conservative answer is, I think we're definitely going to look into doing it again and definitely kind of look at different places, and doing something possibly in Japan is on that wish list as well. So way too soon to book your plane tickets just yet, but more coming down the pipe.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Looking forward to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you both. Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thank you so much to Phil and Mike for sharing their adventures with us. And maybe next year there will be another trip and you can join in and have a great time as well. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up button. If you are listening on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, if you can leave a 5-star review and a comment, that is always great for the algorithm. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. I'm pretty sure it's going to be live from Woodworking in America. All right, have a great one.